This episode is brought to you by Indie Film Hustle Academy, where filmmakers and screenwriters go to learn from top Hollywood industry professionals. Learn more at ifhacademy.com. You both have made films of coming of age and of youth and youth kind of going, just kind of analyzing youth, and also not only youth, but specifically with you, Rick, that, obviously over the passage of time. But I really want to kind of focus on youth because there are a lot of young filmmakers listening to this. And I've got some gray in my hair, right here in my beard. So I've been around the block a little bit. You guys have been as well. There's something that you could only see when you look back at your youth. Why is it, and I'd love to hear your perspective of this, why is it that youth always assumes that the world is there for them, that it is, everything is owed to them, and it should have gotten here yesterday? Like, because I remember when I was coming up, like, I'm like, why am I not in Hollywood already? Like, why haven't they given me $20 million already? Why has that happened?
I know. The frontal lobe isn't fully formed yet. Isn't that the deal? I think it forms when they're 24, 25.
Is that that's just science?
Yeah, I tell these film class, that I speak to, I said, it's going to take twice as, the world doesn't really reward your passion in the way that you put it out there. It's on its own time schedule. All you can do is try to outwork it, but yeah, it's going to take twice as long. It's like building a house or something. It's going to take twice as long and cost twice as much. I said, it's going to require more of you than you think you even have to give, but that's not a bad thing. It's kind of like a long-term relationship or something. There's going to be a lot of effort you're going to put in you're not thinking about right now.
So Alex, are you talking about the characters we created in Boyhood and I Dream Too Much, or are you talking about youth in
general? Like, because you guys have obviously studied and delved in those kind of characters a lot and explored youth and what it means to be young and the naivete of being young. And by the way, I wish I had some of my naivete back, because you become very jaded as you get older, because you've just been around, so you just know things. But really great art is done by, Slacker, El Mariachi, Clerks. A bunch of, young filmmakers who just did it. She's Got to Have It. Like, they just went out and did it, not thinking about how you're going to sell it, where you're going to get your money back, how is this going to, build my career? There's none of that thought. So there is some power in youth, but it's hard to, it's like a wild stallion. It's hard to kind of guide it.
It's so interesting to be in the throes of that too. You're a little crazy. I remember the era that I was doing Slacker. My God, I think I was technically crazy in a way. You have to be obsessive crazy. You're risking everything, and you're kind of at this pitch of, and there's no guarantees. You're risking everything, but you're so compelled to do it. And that's what the arts, it should be doing scary things that you're just compelled to do, and without any thought of what the results will be, other than
you have to bring yourself to the point where you cannot not tell the story. If going out to the lake and hanging out at the lake or going to the beach sounds so much nicer than sitting home alone in your room, cultivating and picking at your psyche and trying to create characters in a certain story. If it has to be almost, not to sound hyperbolic or hyperbole, it has to be as you breathe. It's got to be air, water, shelter, and you must get this story out, or else on a certain level, it just doesn't really make any sense. And having said that, I also recommend short films. Do as many short films as you can. I was inspired by music. I would just create little narratives to songs. I did, 30-second films. I did 3-minute films. My 10-minute film was like I was making Berlin Alexanderplatz. I mean, it was like,
I know the feeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
to tell a story in 10 minutes. And, I think it really has to be something, it's got to be steps. I'm very much into steps. You don't skip things. You value where you're at, and you have to be okay with that. You might go see, so-and-so's biggest film that just came out. But when you come home, you got to bring it back down to what is it you want to say in the medium of film and how to say it, And I do think short films, for me, were always extremely liberating. We showed them in Austin. I mean, Raheel had her short film festival, and I would walk out there going, oh my gosh, I mean, with every, Bob Fosse film or Kubrick film, there was a Stan Brakhage film that made me feel just as happy, because it was an artist figuring it out, and just creating your own vision. But
isn't that like the greatest kind of films, when you're actually watching a film where you see the artist figuring it out, like literally as you're like, they didn't really know what they were doing here. They're just kind of like, oh, here they went over here and they went. And it's not only with film, you could do it with writing, with art, and any kind of art in general.
Just figuring it out. I mean, I felt like all of Wim Wenders' early films, he was figuring it out. And they're so beautiful and so spiritual. I mean, I go back to Alice in the City, Kings of the Road. I mean, I don't know, that is kind of the nature of cinema. It's a feeling thing. It's not a thinking thing.
To me, that feeling too, it's a question. The films are asking questions.
Yes.
That they're seeking answers, but they don't have an answer.
Absolutely.
The goal in making the film is the process of the question that they're trying to answer. It's not like, okay, I'm going to make this whole film to deliver you this answer I already have. They're quests. They're the visual quests, and you can feel that, and I feel sorry for when that artist suddenly has answers.
Right.
And things start to change, little didacticism. And I hope that's not just with age but that is kind of the great thing about youth, because you're just talking about youth in cinema. Youth by definition doesn't really have answers. It's being formed. And that's why I've come back to that over and over again. I mean, here recently I've made definitely some middle-aged films, about that stage of life. But I think youth is always very, evocative. We were all young once, we're all still attached to that young, unformed person who's just figuring out the world, So I've done that a lot of just people searching for their own identities or, figuring out how the world works, that's kind of a constant,
Well, let me go ahead.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just, a quote that really literally hung above my computer while I was writing I Dream Too Much was, when you're at sea, stay far from land. Because like you said, when you're young, you have all these questions and looking back on this time where Dora's 20 years old, graduating college, one life is over and another hasn't formed. I really was trying to do like a love letter to that time, saying, just don't rush into anything. Don't want to know everything. Just be in that ditch. Be lost. As uncomfortable as it is, there really is so much there, And I'm really sad when I see kids, want everything to be fixed and done. The minute they graduate and they're done, they've got their job, they're on, it's like, oh my God, you're just headed for a midlife crisis,
At 22, you're going to have a midlife crisis.
Hey.
Yeah. You see it though all the time. At that age, we just talked about, we're all impatient. We think we want tangible
Yeah.
things from the world that, because we're passionate about, it should be giving us this. And
Yeah.
even know what you don't know, I try to encourage young people. I said, it's all about the process. I mean, your whole 20s is going to be, just build that foundation under you, read everything, watch everything, and work hard.
To watch the rest of this interview, head over to indiefilmhustle.com.